The Associated Press beats the FBI to notify potential hacking targets during the 2016 elections. A successful test proves airplanes are not immune to hackers. And a Canadian hacker to plead guilty to a 2014 Yahoo data breach in U.S. courts. This is Hacker Daily for Monday, November 27th, 2017, and I'm your host, Andrea Donlevy, standing in for Marley Oxenholm. The FBI released in a statement that the FBI routinely notifies individuals and organizations of potential threat information. However, the Associated Press returns findings from the 2016 presidential election that shows this statement may not always be true. SecurityWorks, a cybersecurity firm, compiled a list of 80 U.S. officials that were targeted by Fancy Bear, a Russian government-aligned cyber espionage group. After the Associated Press interviewed these officials, it was found only 2 were notified by the FBI, and many had no idea they were potential targets until after these interviews. Their investigation showed Fancy Bear working closely with the Kremlin to steal Democratic Party emails through personal email accounts during the election. Former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, who was repeatedly targeted by Fancy Bear, has yet to receive any FBI warning regarding the leaks, saying our government needs to be taking greater responsibility to defend its citizens in both the physical and cyber worlds now, before a cyber attack produces an even more catastrophic outcome than we have already experienced. This situation has raised questions about Russia's influence over the 2016 U.S. elections, as well as potential collusion between Trump's campaign and Russian officials. A senior FBI official was quoted saying the FBI had known of Fancy Bear's intentions for over a year, but were overwhelmed by the sheer number of cyber attacks and addressed them based on priority. Charles Sowell, a senior administrator of the Office of Director of National Intelligence, is quoted saying this is absolutely not okay for the FBI to use an excuse that there is too much data. Would that hold if there were a serial killer investigation and people were calling in tips left and right? We will see where this story goes as more of FBI Director Robert Mueller's ongoing investigation becomes public. In other news, Robert Hickey from the Cybersecurity Division of the Department of Homeland Security told experts he and his team had accomplished a remote, non-cooperative penetration test of a Boeing 757 while parked at the Atlantic City airport. Designed back in the 1970s, the Boeing 757 is still used by American carriers and the U.S. Air Force to transport diplomats and U.S. officials. Not to mention, the president's personal jet used during the election was a 757. A whopping 90% of commercial jets still flying lack cyber protection because their systems used don't allow for upgrades, like the Air Force 757s. Hickey said the hack was quick and his team used the typical stuff. Ruben Santamarta, a principal security consultant at the cybersecurity firm IOActive, said you can get on board an airplane without much difficulty. It seems that they did not even have to be physically inside the aircraft, so a laptop, an antenna, and a radio device is probably enough. All can be bought on the internet, and all are perfectly legal and allowed to pass through airport security. Santamarta also stated that hacking a moving entity, like an aircraft or vessel, requires different communication channels than a stationary entity, like a power grid. However, the increased use of satellite communications and in-flight Wi-Fi can open these vessels to further attacks, even remotely hijacking the aviation controls from the pilots. The extent of this test is restricted, and there is a strong sentiment among hacking professionals that the full extent of this threat will remain underestimated. And lastly, Karim BarrettOV, the 22-year-old Canadian hacker accused of assisting Russian intelligence agents in a 2014 hack of Yahoo email accounts, is expected to plead guilty next week in U.S. courts. BarrettOV was arrested in Canada at the request of the U.S. government back in March. The U.S. Justice Department is charging BarrettOV and 3 other men for their roles in stealing 500 million Yahoo accounts, including Russia's Federal Security Service agents Dmitry Dokasheva and Igor Shushchin, who sought help from hackers including Alexei Belin, who is on the FBI's most wanted cyber criminal list. BarrettOV was paid to hack into at least 80 email accounts. 50 of the accounts BarrettOV targeted were hosted by Google. Individuals associated with these accounts include Russian officials, the chief executive of a metals company, as well as a prominent banker. According to the indictment, BarrettOV is the only person to be arrested in this case to date. The original charges included conspiracy to commit computer fraud, conspiracy to commit access device fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and aggravated identity theft. Well, that's all I have for you today, and thank you so much for tuning in for your current InfoSec highlights at Hacker Daily. This episode was brought to you by Pentester Academy, the leader in online cybersecurity education. Join over 10,000 professionals from 90 countries to learn security online. Also brought to you by Hacker Arsenal, artillery for cyber warriors. Visit us on hackerarsenal.com to check out our latest attack defense gadgets. Use our promo code HackerDaily, all one word, to receive 10% off all Hacker Arsenal gear. Once again, that promo code is HackerDaily. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.